Yeah. So one thing that I wanted to circle back to is, yeah. So I have noticed, and the reason that I talk about my sort of mid-college crisis is students often think that, especially if you're in a job like mine where it's like, oh, you're the smart people, right?
Hmm.
That like everything just works out and we always know exactly what we're doing. Um, and things like that. When my advisor came and visited at the College of Worcester, and he gave a talk, and he was talking with students, one of the things they liked best and like really like made him accessible is this is Dr. Joshua Gross at the University of Cincinnati. He is one of the smartest people I know, and I know a lot of smart people. But what you find out about him when you talk to him is his undergrad is in psychology, not biology, and he went to medical school, and he couldn't get into medical school in the U.S. So he went to medical school in Ireland, and that didn't really work out. And he left after a year, and then he went and did some other things, and then he went in and did his postdoc, his PhD and his postdoc, and that was what really set his career. But he comes across as this extremely put together, knows everything, has a plan, extremely hardworking, extremely intelligent person. But what students really like to find out that he had these sort of struggles and this sort of path. So the path may seem to you like it's supposed to be a straight line, but more often than not, the path is really crooked and crosses back on itself and stuff. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that you don't have your life together or you're doing something wrong. It's something that it happens. It happens to everybody. The other thing too is a lot of times, even just about the science. I don't know if any of you have had to read a scientific paper or read about an experiment, but when you read a scientific paper in particular, or particularly a bigger work, everything's laid out in a really logical way, and it's like, oh, I can see where this leads to this leads to this. The first thing that I did, the very first thing that I did when I was working on my doctorate is the last chapter in my dissertation. It is the last thing that I wrote up. It is the last thing that got published, but it was the very first data that I collected. So also know that things may seem very organized in how they're presented, and that's to make it accessible to the reader. But oftentimes it's not that linear and logical, and you get into something and you realize, oh, well, we really need to account for this, or should we check this? And so again, even with, in a research program or in your education, things are going to be sort of crossing over, making different decisions, noticing new things. Don't be afraid to explore, and don't be afraid to deviate from what the path you think that you should be taking, shortest point A to B, if there are, valuable experiences or just more exploring that you need to do along the way.